just having hope or being intentional about developing that behavior, that way of thinking and being, doesn't mean that everything's going to be okay. What it means is that you believe there is a better tomorrow. You believe that things will improve and you will feel joy and happiness again, even if you're not feeling it right at this moment.
Welcome to Women's Thrive Podcast. This is where you'll get to hear incredible stories of female entrepreneurs, business owners, women from all walks of life. Myself, Raymond Jan, and my co-host Abigail will be interviewing incredible women, hearing inspiring stories of women from all around the world. I have no doubt that you will find something that will be life-changing for you. Make sure you hit that subscribe button and join us for our future episodes.
Hello and welcome to today's podcast with your host, Raymond Jan. I'm looking forward to today's conversation as today we're talking about why hope is actually a strategy, especially if you're going through challenging times in life, in business, at your work. I have a lovely guest with me today, Barbara. Hi, how are you?
Hi, Ray. I'm doing great. Thanks for having me here.
We had this conversation before we begin. Don't call me Barbara.
I actually like the way it sounds when you say it.
Good. Well, you can call Barbara Barbs, whichever way you refer, but I do like a full name to start with. At least people
Mhm.
know who you are.
My mother would be very happy about that, Ray.
See, and you call me Ray. A lot of people call me Ray. I love it. Like, I just find it so personal. Like, yeah, I like it. So I will introduce Barbara in a moment, but tell us where you're joining us from.
Joining you from sunny Santa Cruz, California. And I say that because I'm a Jersey girl. So every morning I get up and I see that warm sun, I think, how lucky am I to live here?
Yeah. Oh, I can definitely resonate with that since I moved from grey London to Spain a couple years ago. The first year I would wake up and just say, Ray, you've made the best decision of your life.
It's true, right? When you're in the place where you're really thriving and feel best, you tend to feel more gratitude.
Yeah, 100%. Today's interesting conversation. So I will introduce you shortly. We're talking about hope and overcoming challenges. Now, Barbara is the co-author the book in the Women Thrive book, Volume 4, which is coming out now. But she has some other experiences in her life and also a lot of expertise to offer you. So we'll introduce you. So Barb McAteer is the founder of Barb Mac Consulting, a diversity, equity, and inclusion consultant and a certified Gallup Strengths
Mm.
Coach. She's also an expert in hope, surprisingly or not. And it's a powerful process and a catalyst for change during challenging times. And so she uses a strategy to coach teams and individuals within organizations in helping them become more intentional in their roles and developing their innate strengths using the Gallup Strength Coach training. So this really allows them to be more authentic versions of themselves, which then increases their engagement, results in efficiency, productivity, and also job satisfaction. And I could really totally relate to that when we feel happy and satisfied in our jobs and we can be ourselves. I think it just makes all the difference, like the sunshine, right? What we were just talking about.
Mhm. Truly is like sunshine. We all have those days, right? When you're doing something, go, I'm just not feeling it. 9 times out of 10, it's because you're masking something or just not bringing your full self to the table.
Yeah. So it might sound a little bit boring for some, like strength training and consulting and working in organizations with the teams. But what lights you up doing this work and supporting
Mhm.
teams, organizations, or individuals in doing this work?
I think what I get most excited about and brings me joy is when people start asking questions about what they're learning about themselves. So, for example, I'm working with some young teams here right in Santa Cruz who are volleyball coaches. And one person asked me recently, so does this explain why I've put off going after that next job, because I am very deliberative, which is a strength that basically enables people to wake up in the morning and just think about, what if I don't get it? What if that job isn't the one I really want? What if it's not right for me? And what's brilliant about these people is that they're actually figuring out all of the ways in which they'll adjust if and when something does go wrong. I have like zero deliberative. I just go out and do it. So
Yeah.
the answer to that question is, yeah, that's probably why you put it off. And that's not a bad thing. It's a great thing because you're going to come at it much more prepared because your deliberative strength is so high.
How important that we are actually self-aware of our strengths and weaknesses, especially when it comes to various environments that we try to navigate in life and business.
The reason it's so important and the way it manifests into something that drives change within an individual is because when you are really intentional about developing your talents and turning it into a strength, you not only feel better, right? But you make it clear to other people around you where your superpowers lie. And so they come to you for that strength, realizing that they themselves do not occupy that space naturally. And so people start coming together in ways that they didn't before because they now own who they are as their authentic selves.
Yeah, I can just imagine that, like really owning your strength and knowing actually, like the person you spoke at right at the beginning, not knowing that perhaps their overthinking could also be turned into superpower or something that we might be feeling conscious about if you
Mm-hmm.
know how to turn it into your superpower, right?
Exactly. I wish somebody had enlightened me about these things when I was in my 20s. I could have been so much better at the things I was already good at. And I certainly would have been happier and more satisfied and probably provided a lot more value.
Hmm. So tell me a little bit more about your journey and finding your strengths and finding yourself where you are today.
I guess in general, my journey has been one of incredible gifts. I would find myself in jobs where I couldn't really understand why I was even there. And looking back, I realized that it was because others saw my strengths before I knew what they were. And I'll never forget one time I was working for Oracle, where I spent a big part of my initial career was in software sales. And a gentleman I was working for at the time came and asked me if I would take this job. It was a brand new job and nobody had done it. And there was a lot of conflict and consternation around whether or not we were going to go into this market and just a million reasons why he wasn't asking anybody else. And I wasn't necessarily thrilled. And I remember asking him, like, why do you want me to go do this? Like, I thought you liked me. What is the purpose? And his reaction to that was, this is exactly why I want you in this job. You have the experience, you're willing to do things you haven't done, you understand, okay, the people side of things. And undoubtedly, now that I know my own strengths, that's because of what Gallup calls woo, and that's winning others over. It's a need and desire and intentional way of wanting to be liked and engaging with people easily. And it was evident to him that I have high strategic. I see how things fit together. I may not know why. It's more intuitive and high communication. And so I thought, all right, he sees something, I don't get it. But again, had I known, I might have went and asked for that job instead of being pushed into it. So the journey started in a way, I think, where I was just trusting people around me who were sponsors and mentors to guide me. And personally, in my personal life, I think I've just learned from our parents mostly that trusting yourself is a gift. And when you do that, you end up where you're supposed to be. And so when I married, because my heart told me to do so, when I had a child at the time when I thought, I just really want a child. I can't explain this. Right. So a lot of it, I think, boils down to one word, and it's just trust. I trust the universe and my intuition.
Yeah, beautiful. I love that story. It made me smile and laugh about somebody pushing you into this job. But actually, it's
True
because you're the
story,
right person.
honestly. And it
Yeah,
wasn't the first time.
yeah, you were the right fit. You were just the right person who could do the job. And as you say, isn't it better now when you know your strengths than when you are navigating life hoping you were on the right path?
Oh, most definitely. I am able to be clear with people when asked to do something or engage in a way that says, I'm not really going to be good at that. I know somebody who could do that really well and has a long list of examples of outcomes where they were successful doing it. Here's where I should be helping you,
Mm.
right? And it's easier. And even in my personal life, whether it's with my siblings, my daughter, we talk about it. It comes up.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. I'll say to my daughter, Maddie, that's your empathy talking. You're feeling everything in the room before anybody else does. Let's just sit with it. And that's usually when she's overwhelmed. So I allow her that space. So,
Mm.
yeah, I really wish I had all this knowledge many years ago.
Do you think enough organizations, teams, or individuals spend the time to get to know their teams or themselves at the level that they should, or would actually create more productivity and self awareness?
No is the short answer. And it's not because leaders don't want to or companies don't think about it. I think there's two things happening. One is most of the time they don't know how. They sit in rooms and they're asking themselves questions. Why can't we get this team to function better? Why is there so much dysfunctional behavior? Why are these individuals sitting on the sidelines? I know they have talents, right? And then the second reason is because it would cause those leaders to look inside, right? And to have to be clear about how to lead in a way that they haven't been taught to, right? We have to talk about what's going on deeply inside of people. And that's hard.
Yeah. And it takes a level of confidence and courage, I think, to face
Agree.
yourself and also face others. And especially if your style of management has not been that way. So there's a lot of change that needs to happen,
Mhm.
which I know that's one of the areas which you specialize in supporting others.
Yeah, I think to be clear that I am at a point in my life and my career when I don't have to take every job, right? And I'm not working on things that don't bring me joy. So I'm very clear about working with companies and people that are intentional about driving change.
Mm.
It's okay if you don't want to. That's not a space I will thrive in.
Yeah.
So I want to go where people are driving change, not just to check a box or say they did it, but because they believe the outcomes will be better.
Yeah. 100%. And there's a lot of that. I think the right organizations embrace change.
Hmm.
And perhaps it's part of the culture that you got to evolve. And especially today in such a fast moving environment, you got to adapt or die, really. That's the way I see things.
Yeah, I think technology has
Mm.
brought an accelerated pace to everything that we do and the way we learn and interact with each other. And I think that leaders in general have to be more courageous than they did even 5, 10 years ago,
Mm.
right? If you think about it, the workforce today, just as an example, the Gen Z workforce, okay, people ready and or out there in the market right now, 28% of that Gen Z workforce identifies as LGBTQ plus. And yet our workforces in general aren't really prepared to embrace and include them and allow them to be their authentic selves. That's going to have to change because the workforce has changed.
So let's talk a little bit about why you feel strongly about this topic and perhaps how it ties into story in your book as well.
Yeah, I knew we'd get there, huh, babe? You always bring people to the place where we may not be as courageous to go on our own. I think the story ties to that topic and my desire to speak on behalf of any underserved community, but that community in particular, and women and racial minorities and or people with disabilities, because all of those types of people have been such a big part of my life and my growth, right? And my brother and I, just as an example, my next in line brother, he and I worked together for years. We literally worked for the same company. My sister and I worked for the same company for a while as well. And my brother Brian, fast forward 30 years, finds himself now moving about in his life in a wheelchair because of a spinal cord injury. And yet there were days we ran through the airports together to catch our plane and flew all over the world to do the jobs we so loved. And I realize now how difficult it would have been, and certainly is, for people who come to an interview in a wheelchair and the person is expecting the able-bodied individual. And so they're not looking beyond that. And then when I had a child who was born to me and named Max as this beautiful little baby boy, and at 6 years old tells me, Mama, I really don't know how you can love me. And I was confused by that. I thought, well, why wouldn't I love you? Like, you're the best thing that's ever happened to me. And at the time, Max said, Mama, I don't know how because I'm a girl trapped in a boy's body. And I didn't know what that meant, but I knew I loved my child. And so my journey began to open my eyes to things I never thought about. And I think that's why I'm so intentional about leveraging hope as a strategy. Because in business, for years, we were told hope is not a strategy, Barb. What's your plan? Having hope doesn't mean you don't have a plan. Of course, you have a plan to execute. Okay. But the reality is, these experiences that other people have not had makes it hard for them to feel anything but fear when they see or experience a person that is not like them.
You make me very emotional. You spoke so beautifully. It's so interesting that something that without you expecting in your world to happen, like your son, now your daughter, who said those words to you, how can you love me? And that's just, wow, so emotional. And that changed your world, your perception of the reality. Tell me more about hope, how you incorporate that as a strategy, and what did you have to overcome at the early parts of this journey with your daughter?
First, it's important for everyone in our audience to know that just having hope or being intentional about developing that behavior, that way of thinking and being, doesn't mean that everything's going to be okay. What it means is that you believe there is a better tomorrow. You believe that things will improve and you will feel joy and happiness again, even if you're not feeling it right at this moment. And I had to be very intentional about the process of setting up hope as an underlying foundation for my strategy to move forward. So I didn't know what this meant when my daughter said what she said to me at 6 years old. And I also didn't have people in my tribe who I knew had been through this. And so the first thing you must do is to visualize what you can imagine in your mind, see it, see a better tomorrow. And I would keep this visualization, this picture of my beautiful child smiling, because for so many years, she didn't smile. And the process that you go through to build resilience is actually brought on by adversity, right? So you have hope. I always had hope. I think it's innate in me. And I was taught by my mother to constantly hold on to hope and be intentional about using visualization to see that better tomorrow. But it requires that you rest and you reboot and relax around those thoughts. And I'm not good at that. That was my biggest struggle. And when I tie that to the Gallup Strengths work I do now, I understand exactly why I'm high, what they call activator, which means I don't want to talk. I don't want to sit. I don't want to listen. I want to do. I have to move. I am restless unless I'm doing something productive. And maybe that's why the universe sent me this child, right? Because in spite of the fact it wasn't good for my health until I learned how to rest and sit with it and be okay with the thoughts I was having, I was naturally inclined to go and get that information. Right? I consumed any piece of information I could in any form. But that was the hardest part for me. Getting ready for the fight, right? Getting ready to execute the plan. That wasn't difficult.
Mm.
But ensuring that I rested was.
Yeah.
And I would just encourage anyone, if you think you're going to go through challenging times without doing that, rest assured your body will fail you on the way.
Yeah. Sometimes there is that need for us to do something to solve the problem, to take action,
Mhm.
but sometimes you just have to sit in it. And that's just sometimes what do we have to do in order for kind of the dust to settle? Because it's nothing
Mhm.
you can do. Sometimes it's just nothing you can do. You just have to, especially something like that, you have to accept that this is how your child
Mhm.
feels. And the future will evolve in its own time in the way, and you will find challenges. But at this moment in time, that's all you can do. Just support them and love them.
Exactly. There's all kinds of data
Mm.
that tells us why that is, right? Because our brains take in all the stimuli, right, that we experience every day. And as that information comes in, right, our brains sense danger. I sense danger for my daughter. I was feeling fear. But until you work through that process and allow your brain to determine whether this is a high level threat, a medium or low level threat, and in my case, it was a low level threat, there was only my fear that was being projected into the world that was causing this. There was no event,
Hmm.
right? And until you allow your brain the ability to rest and then be able to detect the level of concern you should have, it's not able to do it. So that's why many people walk through life in fear with a lot of anxiety because they haven't allowed it. And I had to learn how to do that. Otherwise, my hope was just a vision and I couldn't execute on a plan, so it wouldn't be a strategy.
Well, I'm very proud because we've had the opportunity to spend a lot of time over the last few months and to write your beautiful story in Women Thrive book, volume 4.
Thanks to you, Ray, and all the awesome co authors that helped me along the way to get there. I appreciate all of you.
Thank you. And collectively, we chose the cover and chose the color. So we went for yellow for volume 4. And also this picture, which shows a woman kind of reaching out into the air, which to me also signifies hope and resilience and renewal, which I thought it was perfectly illustrates the stories within this book. was your journey? So now reflecting after, now that it's published, it's out here in the world, people will get to read it. What's some of your reflections of it?
I think the one thing that I still wake up aware is in my mind is I hope that there are other women out there, other people out there that will be inspired, that will come to believe and learn how to be intentional about holding on to hope to get through life's journey. Because life's hard. It's fun, but it's hard.
Definitely.
That's what I hope.
Yeah. And the stories in this book is about women overcoming adversities of different kinds. And Barbara, you shared about your journey with your daughter and just personal things that I think will definitely inspire other people, especially if they share some of the similar challenges in their lives.
I hope so. I
Yeah.
believe so. I can see it.
Yeah. Thank you so much to a lovely guest today. If you are listening to this, do make sure that you leave a comment below or you reach out. So, Barbara, where can people connect with you?
Probably my website would be best. It's Barb Mac Consulting. And I'd love to hear feedback and suggestions and or ways I can help from everyone listening.
Yeah. This was really insightful. I really enjoyed this conversation. It's something we've never covered on the Women Thrive podcast yet, as far as, just different topics. We talked about hope as a strategy, but also that self-awareness that we talked about today and how it really helps you navigate your life, your business, your job, or if you do need support for your organization, for your teams. I know that Barbara is your girl to support you in that navigating change and perhaps difficult times. But more on a personal note, if you feel connected and inspired by Barbara, the best way for you to express that is to just reach out to them personally. And her information will be available in the show notes of this podcast. So just scroll down, have a look at her website, her social media channels, and make sure that you grab volume 4 of the Women Thrive book, which I'm super proud of. It is out in February this year. And all these amazing, amazing stories of the women that we have featured in this publication. Thank you so much, Barbara.
Thank you, Ray.
To all of you, thank you all for listening. And I hope this was an interesting episode for you. And if it was, go ahead and share it to your social media followers or friends and leave a review on our podcast. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day. And we look forward to seeing you on another episode. Take care for now. Bye-bye.
Thank you for tuning in to Women Thrive podcast. If you found today's episode empowering and inspiring, be sure to subscribe and follow us. Better yet, leave a review and share it with others. We're committed to bringing you more stories that will empower and inspire you on your own journey. Until next time, keep listening, keep learning, and keep pursuing your dreams.